and welcome to Fantastic History. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Clay.
We're a husband and wife duo who enjoy telling each other about amazing events, people, and mysteries throughout history. I'm here to talk to you guys today about death.
Death?
Yay!
Oh, no.
Not just any deaths, but the kind that involve our most whimsical method of transportation.
Horse-drawn carriage?
Hot air balloons.
Oh.
What's more whimsical than floating above the trees in a giant balloon in your little wicker basket with like your picnic and whatever?
It is always where the most whimsical things happen. Mm-hmm. Proposals.
Sure.
Honeymoons.
Yep.
Trips to Oz.
Obviously that. I mean, they have the special hot air balloon at Disney Springs at Walt Disney World that you can go on.
Yep, absolutely.
Very whimsical.
Yeah.
So, kind of a weird mix of things this week. Hot air balloons and grim death. I started out wanting to talk about the first humans to ever fly.
Okay.
Which were hot air balloonists. And then I uncovered a couple pretty wild stories, and I am who I am, so we're here to talk about death.
All right.
Great. Generally speaking, hot air balloons are pretty safe. At least safer than you'd expect it to be, considering the whole whimsical wicker basket, giant sack of hot air thing.
Yeah, what's holding you up there is just canvas.
Yeah.
Right?
Canvas and flames.
Yeah.
And wicker. Yeah. But, between 1964 and 2025, there have only been about 70 people to die in hot air balloon accidents in 61 years.
That's pretty good.
That's quite good. Compare that to literally any other mode of transportation. And those are great numbers.
We'd have to take into account how many people are going up in hot air balloons in the first place.
Sure.
Maybe it's only 120 in that whole time.
It's definitely more than that. I mean, there's a hot air balloon festival here in the upstate.
Oh yeah.
So we do know for a fact it's more than 120 a year.
Good point.
Yeah. That being said, it's just something silly about it. It's something silly about dying in a hot air balloon.
I have to agree.
Yeah.
You're right. It is probably the silliest way to go.
Yeah. I mean, at least in a transportation related death. Hot air balloon, really.
Probably I guess death via balloon in general is pretty silly.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Well, the first recorded hot air balloon death was that of, okay guys, there's going to be a lot of French in this one, so.
Oh man, I hate.
Buckle up for that, yeah.
That's a tough one.
Jean-François de Rozier, way back in 1785.
Wow.
Yeah, I had no idea we'd been hot air ballooning for that long. None whatsoever. But it's actually been exactly that long because Jean-François and his friend Francois Laurent, I'm not even going to pretend with this last name, Darlandus, ? Were pioneers in the field of aviation who piloted the very first untethered balloon flight in 1783.
Scary.
Yeah. I actually want to talk about that first balloon flight because, of course, there's a wild story behind it. You don't decide to take to the skies in a balloon and everything leading up to that is chill and normal. Right?
I don't even know, to be perfectly honest with you.
Well, prior to the untethered flights, there were, of course, several flight tests where the balloon was anchored to the ground. Okay. Really just to make sure that the thing actually works before we risk life and limb floating off into the ether in a giant balloon. The balloon itself was invented by the Montgolfier brothers, Joseph Michael and Jacques Etienne, which one of them sounds way more French than the other one, but alrighty.
Yes.
Jacques Etienne. And yes, these are super bad American pronunciation because I'm sure Joseph Michael is not actually Joseph Michael in a French accent.
No, we are terrible at pronouncing names, and it's just sort of the gimmick of the show at this point.
We have that, and we have Neil Diamond, and that's what you can count on.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no history to be found.
It's true. Well, Jacques Etienne was the guinea pig who went up in the tethered balloon for the very first time. And it worked great.
Do you know how high he was?
Not with the tethered flights, but I do know, like, once they went untethered for that first time, they really went for it. So because that worked out really well, they started doing demonstrations for people. Like, of course, you're going to monetize this. You'd be dumb not to.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, folks are lining up around the block to see the first person to ever literally fly. Like,
yeah.
The first person to ever leave the ground for more than like half a second.
Yeah, I guess there was nothing quite like it, right?
Oh, no, not at all. A newspaper at the time described hot air ballooning as a spectacle the like of which was never shown since the world began.
Wow.
Yeah, so of course you're going to get a lot of spectators for something like that. One of the people at that very first demonstration of the tethered flights in June of 1783 was our friend Jean-François, who was de Rozier, because they're all like Jean, Jacques, whatever. It's very confusing. But he was so taken with the whole idea that he wanted to join the team. He helped them launch that first untethered but unmanned flight in September of that year from the front lawn of the Palace of Versailles. And for whatever reason, the quote-unquote pilots on the first untethered/unmanned flight were a sheep, a rooster, and a duck.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
So they were the first
They were the true
sentient things to fly that didn't fly.
Yeah, that without being anchored to the ground in any way. Yep.
How terrifying.
I know, right? I mean, like, the duck was probably okay because, if it starts going down, he's fine.
True.
But that sheep and that rooster, boy, I don't know.
Oh, my God.
I'd like to think that, like, the basket was deep enough that they didn't know what was going on. It's not like they could see over the side.
That's true, unless they added a little viewport.
Oh, which is, like, cute, but also that's not cool. Don't do that. There's nothing they can do. Well, King Louis XVI was absolutely delighted by this display and declared that the first manned untethered flight would be piloted by 2 condemned criminals.
What?
Yeah, that way if they died, like, who cares?
Oh, my God.
Yeah. I mean, this is peak Louis XVI behavior, but they were able to talk him out of it by explaining that, like, yes, they could die, but being able to call yourself, like, the first in flight is actually a huge honor that we probably don't want to give to, like, some murderer. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
Yeah, I can see both sides of the argument, but I'm not ever going to be one to side with Louis XVI.
Well, he was probably thinking of it like this would be a great way to just execute people.
Oh, for sure.
Just toss them out.
Yeah, forget it. I don't know, man. But that first untethered flight took place on November 21st of 1783 and lasted for 25 minutes, during which Jean-François traveled at about 5 miles an hour at a height of 3,000 feet in the air.
That's pretty high for a first flight.
Yeah, I mean, and let's really let that sink in. Like, the year is 1783, and the first aviator flew 3,000 feet in the air.
Yeah.
So, for reference, the tallest building in the United States right now is One World Trade Center, which is, of course, 1,776 feet tall, because America.
Yes.
So, like, that's really fucking high in the air, and especially considering the tallest building in the world in 1783 was only 466 feet tall.
So he was up there.
Oh my God, he was up there.
So I guess he was also the highest a person had ever been before too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because how else is somebody getting up there?
I don't know.
Like, prior to that, it was like whoever climbed the tallest tree. I guess.
Maybe the tallest mountain, but I don't know if that would really count.
Yeah,
That's
you're not really. You're not jumping off the side.
You're not really up.
Yeah, you're still on the ground.
You're still on the ground. Yeah. It's just a high ground.
Stop bragging, idiot.
That's so that would be so scary, man.
I stand on the ground every day, so I'm just saying I'm not impressed. So a fun little history tidbit is that Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette were among the 100,000 people gathered to witness the spectacle, as was Benjamin Franklin.
Really?
He was like, girl, I gotta pull up. This is crazy. Well, you know, he loves flight.
Yeah.
Putting things in the air that probably don't go there, like whatever. It's kind of his whole thing. He had a great time. Jean-François also piloted the second untethered flight, and this one did not go as smoothly as the first. Like, the first one went off without a hitch. It was incredible.
Nice.
Because that first one went so well, rich folks start offering fistfuls of money to climb aboard.
Yeah.
As we all know with the Titanic sub, that's always what's going to happen. Like, Bezos has been to space. It's just how they are.
Yeah.
4 noblemen were able to secure their seats. So there's like already more weight in the basket than either the pilot or the balloon is used to. Because now you got 5 guys going up there, or 6 really, because there's 2 pilots instead of 2.
Right.
Yeah. To make matters worse, the balloon itself was made out of, get this, sheepskin, fine, and wallpaper.
Okay.
And the wet weather that day made the paper parts of the balloon start to fall apart.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. And on top of that, they decided, for reasons I could not find listed anywhere and cannot begin to discern, to use a different fuel source than they had in the past. See, in the past, they used charcoal in the fire. There's like, you know, this little basket that holds the source of the fire. You light it, the thing goes up.
Yeah.
They've been using charcoal for that. But this time they used, sorry, let me check my notes here. Ah, yes. Straw that was soaked in brandy.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you go from a very long-lasting, consistent heat source to a super quick and hot heat source.
Correct. The fire burned too hot and went out too fast in a balloon that was too heavy and full of holes. They flew only a short distance before crashing.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. Now, miraculously, this was not the flight that killed Jean-François. He did a handful of more successful flights the following year and then decided he wanted to be the first guy to fly across the English Channel from France to England.
Yeah.
This was like a huge deal, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you always hear people like the first to swim the English Channel, the first to fly, the first to backstroke.
Right.
It seems to be a very big deal over there.
Yes, it does. Well, I gotta, like, at this point, he was no longer very impressed by the Montgolfier balloons, which is what he'd been flying all this time, the sheepskin and paper balloons. He was like, no, I'm not doing this anymore.
Sure. And
decided to design his own balloon. He invented something that used a combination of hot air and hydrogen. So we've got this new fuel source, and then we've also got to design a new balloon itself to accommodate it. So it looked pretty different. The bottom balloon, because there's 2 of them, has hot air being fed by fire. And then there's a second one on top. So it's just kind of like a peanut shaped situation almost. The second one on top holds the hydrogen. The thought behind this design was that it would allow him to fly further and higher while also using less fuel. And we stan a fuel efficiency queen.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, this fuel efficiency queen was using fire right alongside hydrogen.
Yep.
Yeah, so the balloon exploded when the high winds that day carried one of the sparks from the lower balloon up into that higher balloon, which was full of hydrogen.
Oh, darn.
Yeah, Jean-François and his co-pilot were about 1,700 feet in the air when the explosion occurred.
Dang.
The relative good news is that with a fall from that height, like, odds are pretty good that they both died of terror before hitting the ground, so, like, that's something.
Or maybe they would have landed, like, in a bog, like Peggy Hill?
Unfortunately, no, because they did die.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. So, well, we're going to jump forward a few years now, but we're going to stay in France because, again, I don't know what is going on over there, but they were just all balloons all the time.
Well, once you start, you can't stop.
That's true.
The thrill of going up in the air had to be
I can't imagine.
Intoxicating, right?
Genuinely can't imagine. So they really did have a chokehold on the hot air balloon industry in its early years. Like, even though the Jean-François and the Montgolfiers are doing like these tours, nobody else really has the gumption to kind of try it out on their own for the most part. So most of this is still going down in France. By this point, hot air balloon launches were attracting hundreds of thousands of spectators from all across Europe, and balloonomania was in full swing. One such balloonomaniac was Sophie Blanchard. God bless you, Sophie, for having a name with an American equivalent, so I don't sound like a total jackass.
Yeah, that's great.
Appreciate you, girl. Even though she'd been terrified of riding in carriages her entire life, she'd gotten hit with balloonomania when she was about 5 years old and was willing to risk it all to get airborne. She ended up marrying Jean-Pierre Blanchard, who actually was the first balloonist to fly across the English Channel in a hot air balloon. So, I mean, obviously it's very impressive. One thing you've got to know about Jean-Pierre Blanchard is that he was not just a pilot. He was also a showman. He toured all over Europe showing his balloons in demonstrations that involved stunts like dropping dogs in parachutes out of the basket when it was at full height.
Wow.
Probably not very cool to do. Probably looks really cute, but not a very nice thing to do to a dog. Just throw them out of a basket at 3,000 feet and hope the parachute opens.
It's insane.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit insane. At some point, he started getting really fancy with it and made balloons shaped like Pegasus and nymphs. This was basically like the old-timey equivalent of Taylor Swift's The Eras Tour, with one newspaper declaring, all the world gives their shilling to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. In 1793, he took his show over to America and put on a demonstration in Philadelphia attended by John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, and George Washington.
Nice.
Yes.
They had to see it.
I mean, they did. And the good news is that Washington's presence means there wasn't any brandy left laying around for them to soak the hay with. So there's not going to be a repeat of that mistake. And if you are wondering why I would say such a horrible thing, go back and listen to our Eggnog Riot episode.
Oh, yeah.
Because old boy had some sea legs, I'll tell you that. Now, eventually, the crowds are going to start to thin out. Because, like, once you've seen a hot air balloon a couple of times, like, you know, you've seen it.
You got to innovate.
Right. And this is where Sophie comes in. He thought bringing his wife along for the ride and marketing her as the first woman ever to fly would start bringing the crowds back in. You know.
By George, a woman?
It's been a sausage fest up here, boys.
Can they fly?
Well, not when they're on their periods, because they become irrational.
Yeah.
So not only was Sophie absolutely thrilled by this invitation, she was also a natural. And by 1805, she was doing solo balloon flights.
Oh, okay.
While still being too frightened to ride in a carriage, I just want to make that clear.
That's funny.
Oh, yeah. Jean-Pierre died of a heart attack in the middle of one of their flights in 1809, leaving Sophie with crippling debt and no other way to make money but to keep on flying those balloons. Like her husband, though, the novelty of it eventually wore off, meaning she had to start incorporating stunts into her act.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. Fortunately for her, when she started blasting fireworks out of her balloon, she caught the attention of one Napoleon Bonaparte.
Oh, my God.
This is the greatest hits.
Yeah, everyone's here.
Everyone's here. This is Bill and Ted. This is wonderful. So he hired her on as the official aeronaut of France and later as chief air minister of ballooning.
Oh, my God.
I don't know how much competition she had for the role, but she got it.
I think he just made that up.
It's entirely possible that does sound like his MO. But he even hired her. He's so into this whole thing and so impressed with her work that he hired her to perform at his wedding in 1810.
Wow.
He was all about that balloon life. You would think having such a close association with Napoleon, though, would maybe not be so good for her career when the monarchy came back into power. But you'd be wrong. King Louis XVIII made her the official aeronaut of the Restoration when he retook the throne. The look on your face.
This is silly.
Yeah, it's a little bit silly, yeah. I mean, it's hot air balloons. Of course it's silly. She soon surpassed even her husband's wildest dreams of ballooning, going on long-distance flights across the Alps, flying from France to Italy, and generally being a bad bitch. Sophie was so chill with being up in the air that she would often fly through the night and just like sleep in the basket and just let the balloon do what it's going to do while she gets her honk shoes.
Sure.
This almost led to her death twice, though not in the expected way. Once, when flying over Turin, the balloon went way too high into the atmosphere and she almost froze to death.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah. Another time she had the exact opposite problem. The balloon went way too low and landed in a swamp in Naples where she almost drowned.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, you really should not like sleep when you're piloting something.
I guess not.
Yeah, I don't know. Still, it was actually not falling asleep on the job that led to her death. It was those damn fireworks.
I thought that would be a problem.
Well, if you were listening to the first half of the episode, you know there's two things you really shouldn't combine.
Yeah.
Sophie was 41 years old when a crowd gathered in Tivoli Gardens to watch her perform her Bengal fire show on July 6th, 1819. Now, one thing that you'll probably notice if you like listen to our podcast or like any other, like even true crime podcast or something, if somebody gives you the full date at the beginning of the sentence, somebody's about to die.
Yeah.
So here we are, July 6th, 1819. What really set the Bengal fire show apart at the time was that it used a very specific kind of slow burning fireworks. Sophie would drop them out of the basket with their own little parachutes, and they would burn as they fell from the sky. By the time she was done, like it would look like the lantern scene in Tangled.
Wow.
Like just beautiful, like just lights all around, like just floating, just nothing you've ever seen before. So of course this was a very popular show because that is breathtaking.
Sure.
Especially if you're standing in Tivoli Gardens in the middle of Paris at night. Like, forget it. Now, again, like our man Jean-François de Rozier, Sophie is reliant on hydrogen to keep her balloon afloat. So, you know exactly where this goes wrong.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah. And Sophie must have too, because as she climbed into the basket before the launch, she said, "Let's go. This will be for the last time." Like, I'm going to assume she meant this was the last time she was going to do the Bengal fire show, but like maybe she was prescient after spending all that time in the heavens. We don't know.
Ominous last words.
Always. Love it. Either way, she was right. Soon after she sent the last of the Bengal fires overboard, her balloon caught fire. From the sparks. From the fireworks.
Yeah.
Sophie was an expert at this, though, and she did not panic. She started cutting ballast loose to slow her descent. And for a minute there, like it looked like she was going to make it. Because, you know, the balloon is like starting to slow down a little bit, even though the cloth has burst. Like she's cutting all the weight. Like we're probably going to be okay. Unfortunately, her basket smashed into a roof and threw her overboard. She was dead before anybody could get to her.
Damn. So she landed safely.
She would have survived if she hadn't happened to if the basket hadn't hit a roof and basically thrown her off the roof of a house with nothing to catch her.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, to kind of lighten the mood a little bit and a fun callback to episode 43, Sophie was buried in Père Lachaise Cemetery, home to the famously sexy grave of Victor Noir.
Wow.
Yeah, this is truly this is the greatest episode.
This is an all-star episode.
It's really, really good. Her marker is decidedly less erotic, however.
Oh.
I know. No giant penis on this one. It has a depiction of her balloon on fire. And the epitaph reads, "Victim of her art and intrepidity."
Oh, no.
No, it's messed up.
What the fuck? Gravestones aren't supposed to show how they died.
I kind of wish they did, but like, yeah, that's not cool, dude.
Could you imagine going to a graveyard and you just see like people lying in a pool of blood.
Can you imagine seeing that gravestone at Graceland? Like, that's not dignified.
No, not at all.
Dude.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Come on, guys. Give her a penis. Don't give her this. And there we have it. The first man and the first woman to pilot flying machines, both of whom died because they mixed fire and hydrogen. Ta-da. Yep.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah, quite bad. Well, thanks for tuning in and giving us a little bit of your time today. Hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you enjoyed hearing from a lot of our past friends.
Yeah, we're going to have to put like a list of references together because we touched on like 5 or 10 different episodes.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to get that put together. And I'll put like a little, if you check out our Instagram, which is at FantasticHPod, it's there and Threads. I'll use, and when I'm putting up the pictures this week, that last slide will be a picture of like all of our friends, quote unquote, who appeared in this episode because it was lit.
It was.
There were so many. That was probably a very poor choice of words on my part. I'm so sorry to Sophie and Jean-Pierre for saying lit. Well. Yeah, sorry. Anyway, if you enjoyed the episode, please take a second to leave a review and a 5-star rating on whatever podcast platform you use. In addition to Instagram and Threads, we also have YouTube and TikTok. Over there, you'll find us at Fantastic History Podcast. If you'd like to send us a message or if you have ideas for future episodes or like, of other cool graves that you want me to look at, like just for fun, you can direct your emails to fantastichistorypod@gmail.com. Until next time, au revoir.
Bye.